Okay, let's just kick off. There's quite a lot of content that I'd like to get through in this in these 30 minutes. So before we get into that, let me just introduce myself. My name is Paul Lees. I'm the CEO and founder of Besbin Labs, and we're the developers and creators of Patronum. I've been in the Google Workspace ecosystem since 2008. Created a lot of tools, migration tools, management tools, and Patronum is our latest product that we've brought to market way back in 2017 to address the challenges of Google Workspace administration. So this particular webinar is aimed at individuals who have the challenges of managing a Google Workspace environment and those that advise those organizations such as Google Workspace or Google Cloud partners. And we find that file sharing in a workspace environment is becoming one of the most challenging areas that the majority of our customers are experiencing. But before I get into a bit more of a demonstration of what it is we're uncovering today, just want to give you a little bit of background about Patronum. So Patronum is a Google Workspace management tool. It's designed and aimed to, again, provide a tool, a platform that helps address many of the challenges that you would have with managing the on and offboarding of Google Workspace users. So we cover everything from onboarding users. That includes email signature management, as we can see there at the bottom. It includes dynamic group management, where we can help provision people into Google Groups. It allows for the sharing of contacts, the distribution of the Google directory to iPhones and Android devices, as well as what happens when somebody leaves an organization. So the deprovisioning of users, the offboarding, as it's often called, where we can help individuals managing Google Workspace correctly and securely offboard those users, transferring their data, disconnecting unnecessary access from files. We also provide management of Google Drive, so we can allow you to change ownership of files on an ad hoc basis. We can also, as we're going to show you today, help you with Google Drive compliance, give you exposure and allow you to mitigate against oversharing in a Google Workspace environment. But in order to get into what we're here to talk about today, just want to share with you a little story of one of our customers who implemented Patronum purely for email signature management. They were very happy with the package. They'd installed it, they'd done email signature management, and as we'd worked with the organization and added additional functionality, specifically around the file sharing features that we have in Patronum, they discovered that as part of their offboarding, one of the things that they were doing is they were transferring a leaver's files to another account, which is a typical practice within Google Workspace. In fact, it's the default practice that you would see in a Google admin console, where someone leaves. Before you delete the account, you want to make sure that you retain their data, and so you would transfer those files to somebody else. Typically what happens is they're either transferred to a manager, somebody else responsible for the particular piece of work that the individual is doing, or again, quite a common approach is to transfer that data to a service account. Now, what our client experienced was one of the leavers had actually shared a large majority of the files prior to them leaving with themselves on Gmail, and then subsequently was using those files in their new job. They'd gone independent and they were providing accountancy services to other organizations, including one of my clients' past customers. And so we're able to see through Patronum, A, that the files had been shared with this Gmail account, and B, also that the files were being shared with ex-clients. And so we were able to help them bring all that those files back into the organization. So with that, let me jump into a demonstration. So let me just go ahead and share my screen here. So this is Patronum, and we are currently in the Drive section of our interface. And within the Drive section, we are in the Shared Drive area. In the Shared Drive area, we can show you all the internal and external shared drives that your users have access to. Now, one of the easiest way of liberating or stealing data from any organization is to receive a shared drive from another organization. So the shared drive section of our interface is quite useful for discovering and finding all of those externally shared drives. But more importantly, let's now have a look at the file sharing section. In the file sharing section of our tool, we can show you who has access to your data, both internally and, more importantly, externally. So if I click on the external option here, we can see we've got a number of users that we have been sharing our data with. So here I can see that we have the Paul account. Now he's not part of our organization, and so we need to have a look to understand what data we've shared with Paul. So I can just click on Paul's account here, and it'll show me all the files that Paul has been shared with and who's shared those particular files and folders. With a right click, we can have a look at the sharing permissions, see who has access to this particular file, and we can also change the permissions from this interface as well. We can also get the link of the file or remove the file completely. We can also unshare all of the files from this point. And if I select the padlock icon over here on the right, it gives me visibility over the different types of access that Paul has to the file. So from this particular part of the screen, or from the utility, we can also change the permissions of the file. So maybe we don't particularly we're not particularly averse to Paul having access, but we don't want Paul to have edit access to our data. So what we can do in this part of the tool is we can change Paul's access to a viewer and then save those, or indeed we can remove Paul's access from all of those files. Now, one of the things that we can also do in Patronum, if I jump through to the policy section of our tool, is we can also, through the file, through our policies, we can create a file-based policy. So here we have a look at the scope of the policy. The policy here is affecting all of my users inside the Google Workspace environment. From here, we are then specifying inside the policy what we are interested in. So I'm interested in files that are older than 7 days, that have been shared for longer than 7 days, and that have been shared with anybody from a Gmail account. And then what we want to do is have a look at the action section. First of all, I'm going to notify the user's manager just to let them know that files are being shared externally to Gmail accounts, and we can have a conversation with the user just to see exactly why that's the case and so on. We can also unshare those files if we wish. So again, through a policy, we can share those particular files, or we can expire them by adding an expiration date to those particular files. Now, again, looking back at our particular client, one of the things that they now do is within their offboarding policy, in addition to just transferring the files to a different location, through our policies, we can come in and we're going to transfer the files to a particular shared drive. We're going to store those files in the departmental folder and then in a user-specific shared drive. And so the files are going to be copied over or moved over to this particular shared drive. And then we're also going to remove any external access to those particular files. And so the files will be removed from anybody that those files have been shared with externally, and then stored in a Google shared drive. Now, in addition to unsharing the files through a policy, we can also remove the user from any Google groups that they're a member of. Again, typically you would share files with users in a Google group, so Patronum can automatically remove the user from any Google groups. Looking at the complete offboarding approach of a user, in the deprovisioning from a calendar perspective, one of the most annoying parts of Google from a calendaring point of view is that individual users who have left the organization will still remain in a calendar appointment. And so here we can see we can remove the user as an attendee from those particular appointments. We can also transfer the calendar events to somebody else, transfer any secondary calendars, and also remove that user from any shared calendars. Again, probably one of the another annoyance within Google is the contacts. And what typically happens with Google Contacts is if you are emailing an individual internally inside your organization, their contact details will be added automatically by Google to your Google Contacts. So when that user leaves, their contact details are still in your Google Contacts. You can type their name and their name will still appear. So let's say, for example, I leave an organization, I'm in a number of individual Google Contacts, they type Paul, and Paul leaves then appears in the Google Contacts, in the type ahead of Gmail, and in other parts of the environment. We've already gone through files, and then from a settings perspective, we can do a number of things to make sure that the individual user has been securely removed from the organization. So here we can delete any two-step verification backup codes. We can delete any app-specific passwords. We can change the user's password. We can remove the email and telephone recovery details. And these are quite important things that you need to do, specifically because if you change somebody's password, they are then notified via their email recovery details that their password has been changed, which can be quite distressing from a leaver's perspective if they've been let go for whatever reason. We can also sign the user out of all of the devices. We can hide the user from the Google address book. We can move the user to a different location in your Google directory structure. We can also rename the account. Now, the reason why you would want to rename an individual's account prior to them leaving is that you could then utilize their email address and then assign it to somebody else as an alias. And so here we can assign the user's email address to, let's say, their manager. Or alternatively, one of the things that seems to be quite a common approach these days is to create a Google group that is named after the user that is leaving. And so a Google group is created dynamically. We add the manager to that Google group. You can add any individual user you wish. We can also add multiple users to the user. And then you can then be reassured that any emails that are being passed down to that particular user who's left is now being rerouted automatically inside your environment. And we can also suspend the user and delete the user. Now, we also added this auto deletion of aliases. So let's say, for example, you've added a Google group as an email address for rerouting of the emails. You can create another policy that will remove those because you might not necessarily want to retain ex-employees' email details in your system for a significant period of time. Again, from a GDPR perspective, you're advised not to do that. So again, we're automatically removing those as well as creating and adding those. From a licensing perspective, you can add different license types. So maybe part of your deprovisioning approach is that you assign a archive user license to those particular users. Again, you can apply that through a particular policy. From a roles perspective, you would obviously want to remove any roles that the user had been granted, just in order to clean up the role allocation inside your Google Workspace management interface. And then lastly, we also integrate with our backup solution. And so you might want to just have a last backup of that account prior to maybe ultimately deleting that particular user. And so those are all the kind of things that you would want to do from an offboarding perspective, just to make sure that the user is securely removed from your environment. They don't, and they no longer have access to any of the files inside your environment, and the account no longer has access to any of the data, and any sharing that has been granted by that user is also revoked as part of the offboarding process. I'm going to just jump back into the Drive section one more time and just explore the searching capabilities. So in the searching capabilities, this is where you can find any particular file, folder throughout your entire Google Workspace environment. So things like searching for files based on the file ID. Generally, your users will struggle if they receive an email with an attachment or with a link. They click on the link and Google turns around and says, well, you're not allowed to have access to that file. You can request access from the owner. The individual user performs that request, but they never actually receive the acknowledgement that they can have access to that particular file. Typically, the account might have been removed, deleted. The person who is now looking after that file is not quite sure what to do, or it's been allocated to a service account that is very rarely administered. You can jump into Patronum and you can perform a search for the files based on file ID, by name, etc. And then make changes to that particular file. You can change the ownership, you can share those files, and so on. Okay, so that ends the demonstration part of our presentation, and so I'd like to just briefly cover what I would like you to do next. So obviously, visit our website. From the website, you can register to have a much more in-depth demonstration of the product. Typically, it takes around about an hour to go through all the features and functionalities that we can provide you through Patronum. You can install the products yourself. Again, just register. You'll get an email as to how to install Patronum. It's a Google Workspace Marketplace application, so you can just install it from the Google Workspace Marketplace. You get 30 days free evaluation of our product, fully featured. So again, you can go in, you can have a look at the files that have been exposed. You can start unsharing those files without even spending a penny. You can tidy up your Google Workspace environment. Some of the features that I've not covered, such as the downloading of the list of all the files that are exposed externally, being able to collaborate with those within a Google Sheet, and then upload those files or the list of files back into Patronum in order to dynamically and automatically unshare those files as part of a much more prescriptive and clinical process by collaborating on a Google Sheet. And so with that, I'd like to thank you for joining me this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you are. If there are any questions, please feel free to pop them into the chat and we'll just hang on for any questions for the next couple of minutes. But appreciate your time and thank you very much.